Welcome back to What She Said Sports. All right. So if y'all didn't have a chance, I dropped a video about 30 minutes before this show about Jordan Seaton and who's the real target? Who are people really after? What's the goal, right? When you think about what the goal is at CU to diminish Coach Prime program, to get Juju back to the school that, picked him first or away from Coach Prime, because Coach Prime took Juju away from USC, just like he took Travis Hunter away from a PWI. Same thing, right? So go check that out. It's really good. Make sure y'all engage, hit the like button, and hit the like button on the way in. All right, so I have a good show planned for tonight. All right, so y'all already know that Mike Tomlin, the way it was framed is that they agreed to part ways. And why is this likely true? It's likely true because he had more time on his contract and they were ready for him to move on. Now, why? Because Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season, right? They had Stefanski over there in Cleveland for 6 years and only won 2 seasons. Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. And to be honest with you, he's had 2 Super Bowl trips and I think he won one. So Mike Tomlin wasn't the guy that deserved to be parted ways with. And the fact that he still had more time on his contract, and about a week ago, we were talking about him being a lame duck. It proves that they were just ready for him to go. Now, why is that, right? So let's talk about what I know, right? About what I've been paying attention to. So I've been paying attention before Shadur came out of college. I noticed, and I am of the opinion that Mike Tomlin used his coaching power to sign 2 black quarterbacks, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Now, both were in disgusting situations similar to Shadur, right? Now, y'all notice Mike Tomlin wouldn't speak on Shadur post-game, pre-game, and say things about or evaluate him post-game. Notice that. That's number one. That's what makes him different. Because pre-game, he knew everybody by name, and he spoke highly and well of Shadur, Malachi Corley, Isaiah Bond. I was like, damn, you know more about the Browns than hell probably Kevin Stefanski do, right? All Kevin Stefanski knew was who he needed to get to under his thumb to set up Shadur. So I noticed he had high praise for Shadur, and people think, oh, he got fired because they lost that game. No. Remember before the Steelers played the Ravens, remember the conversation, the narrative was, if Mike Tomlin loses this game, he's out. And I said, why is it they know what the hell they're going to do with Mike Tomlin, but at the time, they didn't know what they was going to do with Stefanski? I was like, how do you already have plans to fire Mike Tomlin, who's never had a losing season? So he was targeted. Mike Tomlin was targeted. Why? There's another draft coming up. What happened in the last draft? And what happened before that draft? So I told y'all that Pittsburgh became a haven for Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson was supposed to be QB2 behind Justin Fields. But Mike Tomlin let him be QB1 because they was making a playoff run. And supposedly, George Pickens bears the blame for disrupting their playoff run. And seemingly George Pickens got rewarded and sent to Dallas, right? So after the season, in January, before the whole collusion scandal came out, somewhere around the 31st, I think, I read an article that said Pittsburgh wants to keep Russell Wilson. And then what happens? Russell Wilson gets pushed out, right? Not only did Russell Wilson get pushed out, they manipulated his stats in free agency, because I paid close attention to this. They had yards as the primary indicator of being the best in free agency, not QBR. So when I adjusted it to QBR, Russell Wilson was the number 2 quarterback. Sam Darnold was number 1. Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins were at the bottom. But the way the NFL and people who were in that space were selling it, they were trying to sell it that Russ was washed. Russ was not washed. He was being colluded against because when he was in Denver, there was a bait and switch with his contract, right? And he stood up for himself. They wanted him to let go of his guarantees. He filed a grievance along with Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray about the $230 million guaranteed contract that Deshaun Watson got. So then Russ ends up in Pittsburgh with Denver paying his salary, dead cap space. right? And then after they make a run for it, they already pissed off with Mike Tomlin because we was already over here kicking on Russell. You let him come to Pittsburgh. You was supposed to make him a QB2. You let him get the QB1, and how dare y'all make a playoff run? That's exactly what happened. And then in free agency, they booted Russ out. So last year, Mike Tomlin had 2 black quarterbacks, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. All right. So they booted Russ out, even after Pittsburgh said they wanted to keep Russ because they made a playoff run for it, right? Seemingly like Pittsburgh had their own mind, then something changed. So people came and forced Russell Wilson to go interview with other teams, forced him out of Pittsburgh. One of the teams he interviewed with was the Cleveland Browns. The other was the Giants. What was happening? He went to Cleveland. Cleveland was like, nah, we don't need a quarterback. Think about who they ended up with before they got Shadur, Flacco, and Pickett. So they didn't want Russ, whether they could help him win or lose. They didn't want him. Not that he's a problem, because they just made a playoff run. He's not a problem, just like Mike Tomlin is not a problem. So they colluded against Russ. So Cleveland denies him. Then he interviews with New York. New York doesn't want him either and makes him wait to give him an answer, and gives Aaron Rodgers all the time in the world to make his decision first. So if Aaron Rodgers, who tried to get to Minnesota, if Minnesota would have said yes, then Russ could have probably got the job as a starter, I think, in New York. But Aaron Rodgers did not want to go. He didn't want to go to New York. So here's the story. It's documented. Mike Tomlin is advised to draft Colorado star QB Shedeur Sanders and make him QB2 behind Aaron Rodgers. So why pre-draft work? Why is it in the pre-draft stage right before the draft closed, when Shadur was tumbling from 6 to 21, which he said he didn't care where he went? Mike Tomlin and Shadur had a wonderful interview. Even announcers, analysts got mad because Shadur wouldn't reveal what they talked about. But Shadur said Mike Tomlin knew his dad. Mike Tomlin had wonderful things to say about Shadur. And what happens on draft day, when Mike Tomlin is getting ready to draft Shadur, there were these phone calls. This is also documented. And we had to listen to these phone calls. And the other guy was still there. So the moment Mike Tomlin brought in 2 black quarterbacks with his own decision making, and put Russell Wilson, who was supposed to be QB2, making him QB1 and getting a playoff bid, they stripped his power. Anybody remember Ryan Clark saying after the draft, Mike Tomlin doesn't have any power? He was right. After he brought 2 black quarterbacks in, they stripped him of his power. How many black quarterbacks he had this year? So he had 2 last year and none this year. How did Justin Fields get away? I remember the day this happened. Free agency. At noon, free agency started. Justin Fields hopped over to New Jersey. See, they thought they were going to keep Justin Fields where they wanted Shadur as a QB2. Remember yesterday when I said to you, it's a shame they have Shadur listed as a tier 6 quarterback. It's only 2 quarterbacks in the tier, which is dead bottom, number 31 and number 32. Who did I say the other person was? Justin Fields. So when Justin Fields got away to New York, I remember Dan Orlovsky's face was like, what? He couldn't believe he got away. What was happening? All of the narrative was about Mike Tomlin was supposed to, they were trying to force him to get Aaron Rodgers. All of this was a setup. Even the Pittsburgh Steelers fans were like, why are they trying to force Aaron Rodgers on us? We want Shadur, because they would have been happy with Shadur. But once again, just like in Cleveland, to hell with the fans. So Mike Tomlin had no choice but to take Aaron Rodgers, like they said, and make Shadur QB2 behind him in the draft. And he said he wasn't doing that because Shadur is not a QB2. Every single thing you saw in Cleveland happening to Shadur, they wanted Mike Tomlin to do it in Pittsburgh, but he said no. So he drafted somebody else. Yeah. Mike Tomlin made 2 decisions. That cost him his job, and it wasn't this year. He hired 2 black quarterbacks who were being abused by their former teams, Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. He was their haven. I said that long ago. And he refused to draft Shadur and do to him what they did to Shadur in Cleveland. Keep him away from QB1. See, they wanted to pit a black man, a black head coach, against a black quarterback, Shedeur Sanders. See, this wasn't about Coach Prime. Why is this something from their dusty playbook? Because they did it to Hugh Jackson, a black head coach, and Deshaun Kaiser, who was supposed to be a bridge quarterback. They let Deshaun Kaiser go 0-15 with Hugh Jackson as the head coach. They supposedly, allegedly incentivized Hugh Jackson to lose. So Hugh Jackson could look bad, and Deshaun Kaiser can look bad, and they have an excuse to devalue him and ship him off somewhere else. This was after they fired Sashi Brown, who wanted to draft Lamar Jackson. So Cleveland clearly has a problem with black quarterbacks in the first round being drafted, which is what Shadur was. And seemingly, the powers that be in the NFL space aggressively intimidated and tried to force Mike Tomlin's hand to make him choose Shadur as a 2, so a black man could be responsible and pitted against Shadur, not Stefanski, who they out here protecting. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. That's why they knew if the Steelers lost to the Ravens, they already knew what they was going to do to Mike Tomlin. But the Steelers won, and Lamar got eliminated. So then the Steelers move on to lose. And now it's CJ Stroud's turn. He going to be the next to be eliminated, him and his black head coach. If CJ Stroud and Caleb Williams make it out to the Super Bowl, I will be shocked. Because there is a concerted effort to make sure there are 2 white quarterbacks. They've been working hard at this. And people been sitting back watching, paying attention. And if y'all know anything about a reporter from Jacksonville, a black lady who was reporting for the Jacksonville Free Press, which is apparently a black publication, they were upset with her that she was encouraging to Liam Cohen, the head coach in Jacksonville. You know what they said? Who gave her credentials? She doesn't belong here. So what you're seeing is a concerted effort by people in the NFL space to make the NFL appear a whites only space. Blacks are not welcomed as media, because weren't they crying in Cleveland about waiting for Shadur because Bucky was filming? And I said, they act like they think this is a whites only space and black people don't belong. So when they see black people coming into media, they start saying things like you don't belong, like they found you in their neighborhood and you don't have a house there, because how could you? That's what they did to her. That's what they did to Mike Tomlin. That's why they knew if the Steelers lost, what they were going to do to Mike Tomlin. But the Browns didn't know at the time what they were going to do to Stefanski. Now, let's see how many interviews Mike Tomlin gets. So let me tell you where he should go if common sense and competition were the goal. If this was about competitive football, if this was about talent, Mike Tomlin would be the head coach of the Cleveland Browns to nurture QB1 Shedeur Sanders. Absolutely. When you listen to him talk about the Browns, he was very impressed with their young core. If you paid attention to Mike Tomlin's career, you probably heard them saying things like, there's a running joke. If Mike Tomlin calls you and tells you he has a player for you, hang up on him. Why is that? Because they gave him the problem children. One just went to Dallas. And there were several before them. So they were already making it difficult for Mike Tomlin to move ahead and actually succeed repeatedly, consistently. So if common sense were to prevail, Mike Tomlin would be the next head coach in Cleveland. But since we know that the owner is still swooning over the Manning kid, excuse me, over the Manning kid, can you see Mike Tomlin being a head coach of the Manning kid? No. Did the Browns want to move away from Stefanski? No. So if I didn't want to move off of Stefanski, why did I? Why am I trying to go find him another job? Let's see how many interview scenarios Mike Tomlin gets and what teams they are. Don't forget the Rooney Rule is obligatory interviews for Black people. Let's see if he gets those. I mean, they were hell bent on finding Stefanski another job, and he actually failed. See, Mike Tomlin is like Brian Flores. Brian Flores was a winning coach. Actually, McDaniels won more games than he lost. And in his 4 short years, he made 2 trips to the playoff. Mike Tomlin never had a losing season in 19 years, but they wanted him gone. Mike Tomlin, Black head coach that they parted ways with, Raheem Morris and his GM, Miami's GM, Miami's half Black head coach. Yeah, you see all these Black people being moved out because they're acting like this is a whites only space when it comes to the media and when it comes to leadership, including the quarterback position. That's what's happening. That's why Brian Flores he had 0 head coaching interviews. Let's see how many Mike Tomlin get. So let's switch over to another part of the news today that Philly has parted ways with their offensive coordinator, making room for somebody like Stefanski to go and do what where Jalen Hurts is concerned. Remember that conversation Jalen Hurts had with Shadur that they wanted to know what it was about? Pay attention to where this one right here ends up, because they hell bent on suppressing Black leadership, right? Not at the GM spot, the visible part, Andrew Berry and the guy in Minnesota. But yes, fired the Black GM, scapegoated him and used the team to fire him. Wouldn't let McDaniel bench Tua when it needed to happen. Then McDaniel, who got an extension, gets fired. Tua gets benched. So that's brown and Black people all suppressed in Miami. Mike Tomlin moved out the way, making room for another coach who's maybe possibly not Black. The offensive coordinator in Philly moved out the way as if he was the problem. Didn't he just get that job or something like that? How long he been an offensive coordinator? Wasn't Kellen Moore the offensive coordinator last year? And he got hired by the Saints? Let's see where their offensive coordinator from Philly that was just fired. Let's see where he ends up. Let's see who gets all of these interviews. People are saying Harbaugh could end up in the Steelers camp after they just celebrated Mike Tomlin's memory of Harbaugh. That would be a complete slap in the face and total disrespect, but I can see it happening. But I think Harbaugh is earmarked for New York because the president came out and said that he's supposed to get the job in New York. It pays basically like that, which means Stefanski not going to get it. And either Stefanski going to end up in Tennessee where Cam is, or Atlanta, or the OC in Philly, or maybe Pittsburgh, because they are trying to reward him for failing because he did such good work off the field because it wasn't on the field. So pay attention to that. So let's shift over to Shadur. The reason you're seeing a lot of the things you're seeing, the theory is 17 to 32 Black quarterbacks knocking on the door, becoming a majority as the starting QB1s to prevent that. The NFL has people like Malik Willis stacked up at the QB2, Jacoby Brissett stacked up at the QB2, and so on. Spencer Rattler, etc., even though they are QB1s. But if you spread all of the QB1s and 2s that are Black paired together, there's probably 17, 18, 19, 20. You could go into the next season with 20 Black starting quarterbacks. But just like they worked to make sure this was not another year with 2 Black quarterbacks in the Super Bowl, they seem to be making sure there's not enough Black head coaches around to draft Dante Moore or Trinidad Shamblers. So once again, Mike Tomlin was going to be able to make a decision on a quarterback. And just like Sashi Brown, who wanted to draft Lamar to Cleveland, they moved Mike Tomlin out the way so he can't draft Dante Moore or Trinidad Shamblers, who they trying to make a day 2, who they pushed out of college football so he doesn't compete with the Manning kid, who they already say is the favorite to win the Heisman. How? What you see is they're moving people around and moving Black leadership out the way so they can't make a decision on drafting Black quarterbacks. That's one of the reasons they want Coach Prime gone from college football. Remember, the best case scenario is that he quit. Why? Because Coach Prime had 3 Black quarterbacks. And who came in and tried to run off Juju, move Kaden Salter out the way, and put Ryan Staub as QB1? Pat Schumer, who was an OC in the NFL and a head coach in the NFL from that fraternity that currently has 0 Black offensive coordinators and are whittling down the numbers of Black head coaches. So because they hired Aaron Rodgers, Mike Tomlin got to go to keep those numbers low, 4 or less. The Texans, moving forward in the playoffs, have a Black quarterback and a Black head coach. My prediction, they're going to lose. Now, Caleb is a Black quarterback, but they like his head coach. But don't forget, they already paid Caleb Williams, D3 backup, who's not Black or brown, $10 million. So they already have plans for Caleb Williams, and it wouldn't work if he moves further in the playoffs. So the prediction is Caleb and CJ Stroud will be eliminated, therefore making all of the contenders for the Super Bowl white for the first time in I don't know how long. I probably would have to go look that stat up. When was the last time it was just 2 white quarterbacks in the Super Bowl, 2 white quarterbacks in the AFC Championship and the NFC Championship? Because see, last year, before they cheated Lamar, it was going to be 4 NFC big games, 4 Black quarterbacks playing each other. But they knocked Lamar out. And since they succeeded with that, they ran it back this year. I watched that game with Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers versus the Texans. Aaron Rodgers wasn't trying to win that game. He was just standing in the pocket, letting himself get hit to kill the drive. Now, I was live and I looked at the stats and read them out loud. And what was my conclusion? Oh, they was 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Aaron Rodgers got sacked 5 times, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. He just stood there. So before the season started, when they were forcing Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers, it was said out loud. They sent Aaron Rodgers to Pittsburgh so Mike Tomlin can lose his job. And that's exactly what happened. And now he's supposedly retiring. So they only forced him to go to Pittsburgh, knowing they could get him to do what they wanted him to do, sell the game versus the Texans. The Texans going to move forward, and then they're going to be eliminated. Their defense is good as hell. But I watched the center missnap the ball twice for CJ Stroud. So they already told you what it's going to be when the Texans play who they play next. Let's see if my prediction is right. So Shedeur Sanders, ideally Mike Tomlin should be the head coach of the Browns, but given that the owner seems hell-bent on finding a Stefanski 2.0 or possibly just a puppet that he could control it seems like that's not going to happen because everything the Browns are doing is just to build a bridge to the Manning kid. So what does that mean for Shadur? It means they are comparing him to Jacoby Brissett and Geno Smith intentionally because they have put Shadur on the path to have a career like Jacoby Brissett as a backup. I read it to you yesterday. Basically saying he should be thankful that washed out quarterbacks have security as a backup. They already on that path. It started pre-draft. It happened in Cleveland. And because Mike Tomlin didn't take Shadur, Stefanski had to do it. So Mike Tomlin gets fired, and Stefanski is out here on the interview trail being rewarded for doing what they wanted him to do, which was to suppress Shadur. Because Mike Tomlin didn't want to do it, he got fired. So it proves that when you're a black head coach, they want you to devalue and suppress black talent. And that's the only reason why I'm going to let you get them over there. Otherwise, I didn't put them there for you to help nurture, which is why I told somebody yesterday, there's no head coach that the Browns are trying to get to nurture Shadur. And I was right. So on my screen, you see Pat Mahomes and Shedeur Sanders. Now, why is it the fans can compare Shadur extending plays to the same thing that Pat Mahomes does, but not the NFL? They only compare him to quarterbacks they don't respect. They don't have any intention on letting be QB1 unless it's to suppress another black quarterback like Kyler Murray. Or they consider washed up and let get sacked 10 times playing against another black quarterback, which was Geno Smith versus Shadur. And the Cleveland Browns media celebrated with a video that said every sack on Geno Smith for the Raiders versus Vegas versus Cleveland Browns game. Who wanted to see that? It proves there are people that take pleasure in these players being set up in situations where their lives could be shortened. If the quarterback was white, they would have never. Every sack on Drake May, they would never celebrate that. Every sack on Justin Herbert, they would never celebrate that. But it's okay to celebrate it on Geno Smith because they don't respect him. And you know they don't, because Geno Smith actually had the same record as Sam Darnold, who I told you was #1 in free agency. And they moved Geno Smith to Vegas with no intention on winning and took Sam Darnold out of Minnesota where he was sorely needed because J.J. McCarthy, and put him in Geno Smith's spot and only sent Geno to Vegas to block who? Shadur. So they could say, we don't need a quarterback. You know who else did that with a black quarterback? The Dallas Cowboys. They took Joe Milton, QB2 from behind Drake May, and brought him to Dallas. And when it was conversation about Shadur being drafted to Dallas, Jerry Jones said, I don't need a quarterback. So black quarterbacks got used to block Shedeur Sanders. Now it's Deshaun Watson's turn. Don't be surprised if Deshaun Watson plays next year. Now, that's a huge risk. It would make more sense for them to trade Shedeur Sanders than to play Deshaun Watson because you want to block Shedeur Sanders. Because if Deshaun get out here and ball out, they're going to have to come up with their lie on why they've been suppressing him. And, of course, they're going to say injury, and an insurance company paid his injury $46 million. So if Shadur is still in Cleveland, they already telling you they're going to put Deshaun out here and Shadur going to have to compete against Dylan and Deshaun. Why is Dylan not in any trade conversation? Or is Dylan going to be traded during the draft and they get Trinidad Shambliss and stack him over there like a triplet with Shedeur Sanders? They never compare Shedeur Sanders to quarterbacks that are successful, like Pat Mahomes. Shedeur Sanders went toe-to-toe with Josh Allen. They ain't want to talk about that. They only compare him to quarterbacks that they don't respect, that they don't expect to be a QB1. And Cleveland is the same way. The owner was asked about QB, and he was like, yeah, there'll be a lot of changes on offense. Now, why does it make sense for the Browns to trade Shadur? Number one, They're going to extradite those suspects from Atlanta back to Ohio, and that will be a source of conversation. And if they don't take pleas, they want to be heard in court. So everybody going to be talking about Shadur being robbed if Shadur is still in Cleveland. If Shadur is not in Cleveland, nobody's going to care. They're going to be like, oh, we done moved on. So it makes sense for them to trade him because, like I said, the getaway driver who they got first in 10 days when it normally takes months or years to catch these guys, caught with a large sum of cash, had data points pointing to Oregon football. And everybody knows Stefanski coveted Dylan, who played for Oregon football. And we heard Dylan's girlfriend. Everybody in the building wants Shadur to play. And we know Haslam allowed Stefanski to abuse Shadur. Didn't even try to stop it. And apparently Andrew Berry couldn't stop it. So it makes sense for the Browns to move Shadur. We'll have to do another video on where the hell is it to go. Why is it a blessing for Shadur to get the hell out of Cleveland? It's a blessing for Shadur to be traded because of the trauma that he sustained in Cleveland, and because Cleveland is already on round 2 trying to suppress Shadur, talking about he's going to have to compete again, that they're making a lot of changes to the offense. They already signed one player. They signed a wide receiver who's 5'9", who didn't play in the NFL last year. He might be good, but that's the most that they're willing to do. They have 10 picks in the draft, and they signed this guy to a futures contract, which means he really could just be a camp body. Did y'all know after the game, the next day after the Browns' last game, they signed Luke Floria to a futures contract? They want him to stay around. People say Andrew Berry let it slip that they want Shadur to be ready week 1. That might be what Andrew Berry want, but that ain't what Haslam want. And we know whose team it is and whose team it's not. It's actually a blessing for Shadur to get traded, even if it's because they don't want Shadur in town when they extradite the suspects back, because there are people that believe that those suspects are white. Then how do you explain the data points pointing to Oregon? That's where it gets a little messy. People ask, is it possible? Oh, I just said it, that the people that hired these guys that they're going to extradite back to Ohio are the same people that turned them into the police, which explain how they caught them so fast. Because you knew exactly what it looked. You can't just say it's the cameras, because the cameras caught license plate that don't belong to the people that was driving it. And the people that rented the car are not the people that was driving it. And if you know somebody rented the car for them, then you should know who they were working for. But they said they didn't know who hired them. And that would make the police seem like they're being untruthful. So it is best that Shadur gets the hell out of Cleveland for the Browns' sake. And that's a blessing for Shadur, that they have to move off of him rather than put him back through the ringer to compete again, knowing that they just going to cheat him again. It's a blessing because Shadur was traumatized there if he gets traded. It's a blessing because he shouldn't be forced to compete again. It's the blessing because the owner really does not value Shedeur Sanders, still does not want Shedeur Sanders. And if somebody in the Browns organization had anything to do with that, and there is a laundry list of suspects who had motive, Shedeur shouldn't have to go back to the Browns to deal with that lingering scandal, waiting for people to come out that got caught when he know himself it was an install, whether he admits it or not. Coach Prime already talked about how difficult it was for him. He shouldn't have to go back and deal with that, knowing that they already on that BS for round 2. It's obvious they don't respect him because he does have the same playing style as Pat Mahomes, but he doesn't have the same complexion. So Shadur should not have to deal with that. So it is a blessing for Shedeur Sanders to get traded to another team because the Browns do not have long-term plans for Shedeur. And even if he was a bridge for 1 year, they already showed you how they treated their bridge and Deshaun Kaiser. They have no intentions of allowing Shedeur Sanders to go out here and ball out, which is why they are talking about Deshaun Watson. The Browns are seemingly doing everything they can to hire a Kevin Stefanski 2.0 or a puppet to be a Kevin Stefanski 2.0. And it seems like they wanted to be a black person like McDaniel, who's half black, to pit against Shadur, something they wanted done with Mike Tomlin, but he said no. And that's why he has no job. Would they bring a seasoned 19-year veteran who's never lost to be the head coach for Deshaun and Shadur and possibly a black player that they want to stack over there? Hell no. Because Mike Tomlin already showed you he's not going to suppress Shadur. He already showed you that he would give respite and haven to Russ and Justin Fields. So yes, he would nurture Shadur. He would allow Deshaun to play. And he will be crafty and strategic enough for both of them to play and shine. And they're not going to do that. They're not going to do it. Because he's not going to play ball like that. So they want Stefanski 2.0. They don't want to compare Shadur to the playing style that he actually has, any quarterback that's successful, black or white, including Pat Mahomes, because he don't have the complexion. So it's a blessing for Shadur to get traded away from such a toxic environment who chose to watch him be abused rather than protect him, who chose not to hold Kevin Stefanski accountable, but to be enthusiastic that he would get another head coach after he failed. Why'd you fire him? Who does not respect Shadur as a human? The Browns do not respect Shadur as a black quarterback and don't think he's worthy to be a quarterback, no matter how elite he is, because they were supposed to draft him number 2 overall. And now when you look back at how they've treated black quarterbacks, it gives the appearance that they were never going to draft Shadur. So if I can prove that you bait and switch from Shadur, if I can prove, well, I can prove, and then couple that with you allowed Stefanski to abuse Shadur so Shadur can't get to QB1 because you chose not to draft him QB1 and you are hell-bent on making sure he's not QB1, 17-32. And then there's the robbery, the inside job. It proves it's a hate crime. If I didn't want to draft you number 2 overall because I've never drafted a black quarterback and I was just playing with you so I could get you to come to Green Bay, but we was always going to lock you out the first round. We was always going to let you fall. And even when you came to us in Cleveland and you competed, we didn't give a damn. We still put you behind Dylan, and that made us feel good. There are plans to talk about moving away from Shadur, but what are the plans for Dylan? Dylan is the person they should know what they're going to do with him. Just like Stefanski is the person they should have known what they were going to do with him, not Mike Tomlin. But they were betting on Mike Tomlin's downfall because that's what they want. They're betting on Shedeur Sanders' downfall because that's what they want. That's why there's no conversation about Dylan. Don't be surprised you look up and he just somewhere else and nobody knew about it. You think it's a coincidence that the local Cleveland Browns pundits don't talk about the robbery when it happened and don't talk about the robbery after the guys get caught? So maybe it is highly likely that the people on the inside of the organization hired 4 black men intentionally from Atlanta to pit black men against black men. Like they wanted Mike Tomlin to be pit against Shadur. Like they fired Sashi Brown so he don't get Lamar. Like they pit Hugh Jackson against Deshaun Kaiser. Pitting black people against black people and then discarding them. And how do you discard the robbers after you hired them to come up? Because they are black. Y'all didn't think it was strange that all these other people got robbed and it wasn't all national news? but Shedur's was, and the first detail they told you is that he was careless, or they made you think it was somebody on the inside because he left the door unlocked, and that was a lie. And we got all these law enforcement agencies standing around to make you think they did a good, thorough job. It is them beyond a shadow of a doubt. But people that know the body type of Black people, know how Black people walk, know how Black people dress, say they're not Black. And they can't find number 4. And he wasn't in the hotel photos. So is it possible the MO was to get people who were Black, like all the aforementioned examples I just gave you, to pit against Shadur, who's Black? And people would dismiss it like they have and said it's just some YNs who need to get a job, when actually this is organized crime. This is a little different. So the people that hired them had a point person, and the point person likely met up with the guy that's not on camera in the video, or one of some of them, for them to get paid, for them to get the logistics that somebody locally took, right? And then when the job is done, they leave right away. They had to meet up probably to provide the information or provide the context of Shedur's house that they took and stole to the people that they stole it for, because you know they're going to want proof that this happened. Other than you kicking in the door, I need to see what it is you took. So give it to me. And maybe it's in a dumpster somewhere or an incinerator burned to the crisp, because the goal wasn't the material things, but the goal was to hire 4 Black men to pit against another Black man and make it worth their while to come up 22 hours round trip for 12 minutes. Pay for their hotel because you know they're going to be on camera. Pay for the rental car because you know they can track that. Give them places to go out to eat because they can track that. Give them money for that. And when they're gone, after they finish with the point person and they head back to Atlanta, 10 days later, there's just a police officer waiting for a traffic stop. And they all 3 got caught with 3 separate traffic stops. What are the odds? What are the odds that all 3 of them didn't have their blinker on when they turned left? Sounds like a stakeout. They were waiting for them. And if that is the case, then it opens the door to discuss, it's possible that the people who hired the point person to contact with them are the people who turned the information over to the police so they can know exactly where to find them like that. And then we make a national spectacle out of it in the news with all this law enforcement agency, and good job. When it takes months, if not years, to catch people that commit these kind of jobs. And they said it. They just needed the cameras. You would think they would have used their phones. So maybe they're just not telling us everything, but we shall see. Because it seems like an inside job. When you move into the mall, why they were Black, why they were from Atlanta, how they truly got caught, why one of them is missing. It might be good that Shedeur is not in Cleveland. So it is a blessing for Shedeur Sanders to get traded to another team. Yes, they will likely suppress him. Yes, they will treat him like Jacoby Brissett. They will treat him like Geno Smith. They will continue to talk and devalue him, but he will have his peace. It is not easy going to a toxic workplace where you can't trust anyone, because numerous people, everybody in the building wants Dylan to play. So it is a blessing for Shadur to get traded. All right, so let me see what y'all are saying about this. It is a blessing, and it ain't even in disguise. It's just a blessing. So he could be done with all of the trauma, right? So let me see what y'all are saying. I'm hopping over to the comments. Hey y'all, how you doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good evening, good evening, good evening. It said we walk over here. Yes, we are. Hit the like button. Yes, thank you. Hey, how you doing? How you doing? Blind Beauty, welcome back. It said, what's up? What's up? What's up? Your shows are fire. Oh my gosh, thank you. Laker Faker, thank you so much. If anybody knows the score of the Atlanta Hawks versus Lakers game, let me see if I can get it on my screen. I said I was paying attention to that. The NBA this season is my respite from the toxicity taking place within NFL. The score is 53 for the Lakers and 44 for the Hawks. That's kind of how I thought it would go without Trae Young. And I think LeBron is supposed to be injured or not on injury management. I guess he had an injury, so he was questionable. So I don't know if he's playing. So I could kind of see the score. It said, for what I gather, I believe Colorado used Dion to build that program back up. And now they became relevant. It seemed like they don't need him no more. And Coach Prime is not stupid. He knows. He does know. He does know because he posted it. He said, I'm a fool, not an old fool. He said, I'm not a fool or an old fool or something like that. He knows. He knows. Now, does he know that he was lured away intentionally from Jackson State to bring Travis back to a PWI? And he was being discarded immediately after Travis and them were gone. Does he know that? That's worth knowing, because now you got to look all the way back at the Celebration Bowl and how they use that tight end who was white dropping the ball to make you think, okay, let me go hop on the plane. How it is they sent the plane for you. How it is they left and they Jackson State clothes and went there. And it's Travis and them were gone. Look at how they pitted Travis against Shadur, pitting black man against black man. Depending on where Jordan Seaton lands, if it's Texas Tech, remember the head coach of Texas Tech is supposed to be a friend of Coach Prime's. It seemed like they're waiting to tell us where Jordan Seaton goes if he leaves, so they don't appear that they were poaching, like they over there thinking about something. But if it's Texas Tech or Texas A&M, during the season he posted, take me to Texas, so we know it's premeditated. And that's not a good look, because why wait until 3 days before the portal closes? You said it yesterday after the close of business. So now, today is the first day to get on it to make sure they have all the talent that they need. Jordan Seaton thanked, what's his name? Rick George first. I don't know why you think Rick George first. Coach Prime is the one that gave you the opportunity to ball out as a freshman. Yeah, I paid attention to that. But we're going to wait and see where he lands, right? Timing is everything. And the timing of this is very, very, very suspicious. Just like the timing of the robbery at Shedeur Sanders' house. It's the same thing. So, yeah, Coach Prime knew. Shadur knows. But he not going to say, because he supposedly got to go back there to work. So I got to pretend like I think it's the people that did the drywall. When you know it's not, because Bucky wasn't there. How the hell they knew? How did the drywallers know Bucky wasn't there? Drywallers are not hiring these people they ain't got that kind of money to pay some people thousands each to make it worth their while for the trip. That's somebody who has access to disposable cash and lots of it. Athletes do fit in that category. Some of them keep a safe field with $100,000 in cash, $50,000 in cash, because I don't know. That's just what they do. So you got to look back at Berea. So yeah, Coach Prime knew. I just don't know if he knew that the moment Coach Prime, flipped Travis Hunter from a PWI, they wasn't looking at it that he flipped Travis Hunter from Florida State to Jackson State. They looked at it as Coach Prime was successful in doing something that was rarely done. In HBCU, being appealing enough that Black kids would want to go play for them. Why do you think HBCUs are so deprived financially? So they can't compete with the football talent. They don't care about everything else. They don't care about no other sport, because football brings in all the money. That's what they have been trying to keep from happening for decades. So Coach Prime was successful at doing something, not building Jackson State back up. They knew that. They didn't care about that. Somebody said it's documented. It wasn't until he flipped Travis that they set up and took note. Look at how they accused him of paying Travis Hunter $1 million. They can't even fathom why a Black player would want to go from a white school to a black one, so much so they got to say Coach Prime paid him. That's how much they think they have depressed black students. And they know it's the money. So what are they trying to maybe possibly throw at Jordan Seaton? The same thing they tried to throw at Travis Hunter. But Travis Hunter said no. And then the whole time after that, they try to pit Travis against Shadur. Do you know one of the reasons why? Because it came out that Shadur reached out to Travis. Just like Jordan Seaton put out there, come play for me. Come play with me. Last weekend. Same thing. But Travis didn't take the money. And they even framed it as, we want you to lead Coach Prime's program and you could pick one of the 3 schools. That's why they already know the schools that Jordan Seaton could go to. So is Jordan Seaton gonna take the bait? The same bait they laid out for Travis, but he knew his worth. He knew he would go first round. He knew he'd be top 5, top 3. So he didn't need to take the poultry $1 million, because guess what? He got $31 million sitting in his bank. That's facts, because his signing bonus was $31 million. He asked for it up front and got it. Something that does not happen if you're black. You take what they give you. And if somebody else got it, then it's hush hush. So Travis Hunter stayed down and got rewarded for it. They offered him, I think, $1.3 million. He said no. He ended up with the Heisman. Top 1, 2, 3 draft pick, $31 million in his bank account, all because of Coach Prime. Because Travis asked for his money and they were stalling him. And what did he do? He went fishing with Coach Prime. And on a Sunday, they gave him his money because they got scared, because Coach Prime is influential. So after he brought Travis back to Colorado and signed 3 black quarterbacks, Travis gone. You got to go. You too influential. And I said it. Oh, it's okay for Texas Tech to have a black quarterback that Coach Prime was going to get. But Coach Prime can't have a black quarterback. You know why that is. Look at Dante Moore. Dante Moore was trying to decide what he wanted to do. Oregon announces, or somebody announced, that Dylan Raiola is visiting Oregon, and Dante Moore had made no decision. Trying to push him out. And that's what I was concerned about, which is why I said Dante Moore need to hop in the goddamn portal, go get the bag, and go to school somewhere else. But if you a black quarterback at these white schools, hear me, Keelan Russell, and hear me good. You're going to get devalued. Just like Lenore Sellers did, which is why he went back to school. They see y'all as black quarterbacks. They don't even care what your name is. They see you as black quarterbacks being talented. They know you have the DNA. They know you have the athleticism to outplay a Tyler Shaw or a Jackson Dart or a Mendoza or a Dylan. They know it. Which is why they want you to be buried. And they'll tell a black head coach like Mike Tomlin, we want you to draft Shadur and make him QB2 behind Aaron Rodgers. And he said no. So Aaron Rodgers cost him his job. So yeah, Coach Prime knows. I just don't know how much he knows. League on the slick stuff. Absolutely. They acting like, oh, it's the white only space. You got to go. And that's what was happening in corporate America, right? They fired all these black people at the top. The moment they struck down all this DEI stuff, which really helped white women, only 4% of black people were actually aided and helped by DEI. Right? And that's just the truth, right? So it really was supposed to stop us, but they using it. Oh, DEI doesn't exist anymore, so I don't need any more black quarterbacks. So they took end racism out the end zone. It says it takes all of us. There are certain teams that still have end racism on the helmet. They're trying to say each team operates differently. Some get paid on Mondays, some get paid on Thursdays or Tuesdays. So some teams might be quarterback friendly and some teams might not. And for the ones that were quarterback friendly, that had black head coaches, their black head coaches gone. Just like the GM in Miami. When Shiloh posted he was moving to Miami and he was going to get a room for Shadur. Not saying it had nothing to do with it. It's just the timing. Then the Browns brought in a quarterback from Memphis who was undrafted to try out. The same time they brought in Brendan Rice to try out. Remember they had them little tryouts? Because the trade deadline, November 4th, was approaching. They fired the GM in Miami who was black October 31st. So he couldn't draft or trade. One of the first places they said they thought he might land is Cleveland to work with Andrew Berry. So it should tell you that Andrew Berry has some kind of relationship with this man. And it's possible they were talking about pulling Isaac Newsom and getting Shadur out of there. And the GM got fired before November 4th. Andrew Berry probably going to be gone next year, whether he know it or not. So everything is being done to be a bridge, right? And the black people are just collateral damage. That's just what it is. The ones coming in the draft that didn't go back to school, the ones that's on the ground like Milroe or Shadur, Joe Milton. Pay attention to who they keep comparing Shadur to, people that they consider washed. So yeah, Coach Prime no, Shadur no, and yes, they own that slick stuff. And the slick stuff is people within the NFL space, whether it's media or coaches or GMs or staff or fans, act like the NFL is a whites only space. That's how they treated it. And the black people that they retain, like Andrew Berry or the GM in Minnesota, is to say, look, we're not racist. Because you know they don't have no power. Be like Mike. That's it. It said if the Giants don't hire Stefanski after he colluded for them, I'm going to laugh at that Patsy. I think they're going to get him as an OC possibly in Philly. We're going to see. Because the last place he should go is where Cam Ward is, because that's lawsuit number 2. He already a liability. I believe that's why they fired him, because he's a liability. Because the owner was out here stomping for him, talking about, oh, I'm optimistic he'll get another job. And they were saying on Pac-Man Jones, so yeah, so y'all could get rid of him. Now, mind you, they know they don't want to try to get nothing done next year. They want to tout out the Manning kid all season so you could gloss through this season and salivate for the Manning kid. I hope that shit work out for them, because they have seemingly bet the damn farm on this kid. They, once again, trying to read the damn Heisman. When you hear those guys, Grossi and Rizzo, start talking about the Manning kid again, pay attention. So the owner wants the Manning kid, which is why he don't want Shadur. Which is why he was willing to trade away that pick. He didn't want Travis or Shadur. It said, yeah, that Broncos coach was real nasty to Russ. Yup, Sean Payton, Bounty Gate. It said, that's why I hope his butt don't win the Super Bowl. I agree. It's some karma. It's some karma happening out here. Let's pay attention. It said they blackballed Shadur, and now they puppets are all losing their jobs. Yeah, let's see what they fell up to. It said collusion, straight collusion. That's it. That's it. It said it's crazy because damn that every team except for the Cardinals still need a quarterback. And it's ironic, damn near every coach get fired. Pay attention to the coaches that got fired and pay attention to their black quarterbacks, because that's what it is. The only coach that got fired, that's Mike Tomlin himself is black, but his quarterback is white. Before Mike Tomlin got fired, before McDaniel got fired, all of the coaches that got fired had black quarterbacks except for the Giants. And why is that? Because the narrative is, just like it already is put out there against Shadur in Cleveland, oh, the new coach is going to want to draft somebody. The new coach is going to want to choose the quarterbacks. So that opens the door to devalue and bench all of those quarterbacks. Be it Cam, because here's the thing. Tennessee did the same thing to Malik Willis. Drafted him. Oh, we want to go back to Will Levis and sent him as a 2. Drafted him as a 1 and sent him as a 2 to Green Bay. So they're going to want to try to send Shadur as a 2 to another team. People were talking about Malik Willis going to Pittsburgh. I guess that ain't going to happen now, huh? You see? The timing. The timing points to the agenda every single time. It said, the only job that Stefanski want is the coach Jackson Dart. I don't think he getting that job. And the funny part about him not getting that job, we got to see, right? Y'all know Trump put out a tweet that says John Harbaugh should be the next head coach at the Giants. When Harbaugh got fired, Trump came out and said, he's a fine man. He should get a job somewhere. Then when it came down to Stefanski and John Harbaugh, the president came out and said Harbaugh should be the next head coach of the Giants. I said, oh, the president is blocking Stefanski. Well, that's just interesting. Then the president, he the reason Shadur got drafted. Was the Secret Service involved in this investigation? Okay. I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see